In the best-selling book, Unraveled, mother and son share their raw journey into alcohol and drug addiction and the grueling work it takes to get sober and remain sober. The both families' love and compassion is palpable as they work their way through deep fear, sleepless nights, and questioned setbacks. This is a riveting portrayal of the agonies of addiction and how one family faced their issues and found a stronger, more sustainable path forward. Many readers will undoubtedly see themselves in these stories and will come away with an unbinding sense of hope as they journey with the family's slow climb out of the abyss of pain into the full power of faith, redemption, and healing. Unraveled by Laura Cook Bolt and Tom H. Bolt is available now on Amazon and everywhere books are sold.
Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back Show, where intimacy is real. On this show, we believe that intimately connecting with yourself, your significant other, children, family, friends, business networks, community, and your higher power can elevate your life to work towards a positive future. Thus, we explore intimate topics, inspiring life stories, spiritually and insightful tips on strengthening relationships. This show is hosted by Dr. April, a Florida licensed mental health counselor, relationship and intimacy therapist. Check out past shows on Apple iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Now, let's get this episode of the Bringing Intimacy Back Show started, because we share with you the secret power to intimacy to create a life you love, or love the life you create. Now, here's your host, Dr. April.
Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back Show, where intimacy is real. Thank you guys for joining us so much today. And if you're listening and you're been listening to our podcast, please, or our show, please give us feedback because we're changing things and we love to hear from you. Well, today we're going to talk about something that doesn't really get talked about much, but I see it so much in my counseling sessions with others that I really thought that, I really need to have this as a topic on the show and need to address the concerns of people out there with this situation. And so the topic today is how infertility has destroyed my intimacy with my partner. And that's a topic that like I said, I've heard and I've seen. And anyone who's out there who's listening, who may be feeling, well, that identifies with me, or if you have friends or sisters or people, please share this podcast with them. So since I've had this topic out, I decided to search and find the perfect expert. And I mean, she is the perfect expert to talk about this. And this is Dr. Sara Rosenquist. Welcome, Dr. Sara.
Hi there, Dr. April. Good to see you.
Yes. So Dr. Sara is really a board certified clinical health psychologist and a fellow of the Academy of Clinical Health Psychology. She is a sex therapist certified by the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists, and an approved consultant certified in the practice of hypnosis by the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. She's been around, she knows a lot, and she provides practices. So welcome, Dr. Sara.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Yes. So I'm curious, Dr. Sara, first thing, how did you even get into this field?
That's a great question. I'll tell you, I did my dissertation on postpartum depression in couples. It seemed to me back then, and this is a long time ago, 1984, when I was doing my research, that it couldn't just be all about the hormones. And in fact, it's not. It's not about the hormones. It's about life. It's about stress, and it's about the quality of your relationship. And it's about the pressures and strains that we put on couples as they transition to parenthood. Well, then later on, when I went into private practice, I told my OBGYN I was opening a private practice, and she said, oh, go over here and talk to nurse so-and-so and take her to lunch, and we'll start referring patients to you. And I did. And I noticed that there's a large overlap between the kinds of mental health problems that turn up in the OBGYN office and marital problems and sexual problems. Hence, I pursued the certifications in sex therapy and have been kind of carving this out as my niche ever since. So your question was, how did I get into the postpartum depression era? I picked it as my topic.
Okay. And that led you into the variety of sexual issues that's happening among couples and individuals.
Right. Because anytime one person in a couple is depressed, there's a 50% probability the other person is too, and probably a 75% chance that they're having sexual difficulties.
Wow. Wow. You said that, right, you started your dissertation in 1984, am I correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And now we're in 2020, and for some of us maybe listening in 2021. Yes. So
that's a long time ago.
I know.
Gosh, it dates my grayed hair, right?
No, but I love the gray curly hair. I love it. Yes. Yes. I'm curious though, how has it changed over time? The sexuality issues that are happening within couples, is it getting better? Because, you know, how can I say, now we're more open and we talk about sex and intimacy, or is it getting worse because there's so much emphasis on it, you know, and so much pressure? Yeah. What do you see?
Well, I see both, actually. I see that it's better in the sense that we are more open and there seems to be less shame. And I say that in a qualified way because a lot of people still do come, at least in my practice, I see a lot of cross-cultural couples. I see people from different cultures who had a very traditional cultural background. And oftentimes they come in with sexual difficulties early in the relationship. And they might actually stem from shame and excessive modesty and difficulties talking about or experiencing sexuality and talking about it with their partner. But I've also seen in the culture a shift towards, it's almost become normative in the dating realm to essentially have sex with strangers and to have sex with strangers as a part of the getting to know you process instead of getting to know a partner and then having sex with them. It's sort of flipped in the 30 plus years that I've been doing this work. And I see problems arising from that. I call it the padlock model that I came up with. And I don't know if you have a screen share here. You let me share your screen and do the little whiteboard.
Okay.
But here's my cutesy little drawing of a padlock. In the old-timey padlocks, the metal ones, not the digital ones. Wait for it. It looks like a purse. Now it'll look like a padlock.
Okay. Yes.
In those old-timey padlocks, inside that casing, you had 3 plates, and you put in the key and it lines up those plates in order to unlock the lock.
Right.
And in my analogy, you see the plates are the head, which is kind of where everything happens. It's the brain that controls everything, right?
Oh, in the heart. Okay.
And I guess we're calling it the junk.
The junk, okay. The junk, okay.
As a psychologist, of course, I outsource the junk. I have that evaluated by the urologists and the gynecologists that I work with.
Okay. Okay. So what are the things you're saying is that Okay. Yeah. So when you're going back, I'm just going on here. One of the things you're saying is that for sexual difficulties, it's really good to get a physical checkup to check on
Yes,
the
by a
job
specialist and somebody
by a
who actually
specialist.
knows sexual medicine. And the I've taken lunch to all of the urologists and OBGYNs in my area, or most of them anyway, in order to get a feel for who's most comfortable talking about sexuality, that I can work with, right?
Okay.
And so you want to know that they actually are comfortable talking about sexuality and have advanced training in human sexuality, because the truth is that most medical schools don't cover sexuality.
Mm.
And a lot of people are uncomfortable talking with their patients. Patients can pick it up right away. But in my padlock model, you see the head, that's your attention, that you've got to have your head in your body. You can't be thinking about the laundry list and whether the kids are going to wake up. And your heart has to be connected. You know, if your heart's not connected, if you're trying to have sex with a partner in the hopes of growing an attachment, that's going to present problems. You're going to end up with, in my experience anyway, people end up killing desire long term, and they end up with performance anxiety of various kinds. And it just creates a great deal of problems later
Okay.
on down the road.
Okay. Yes. Well, one of the first things that you said, and I kind of want to touch on this because this is dealing with infertility and it's dealing with the top part here, the head, is shame.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Many couples or many individuals who are struggling with trying to have a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes there's, and I guess the shame is also head and heart.
Well, I think it's head and heart. One of the things that happens, and the most frequently in my experience treating the sexual and reproductive health issues, is that when people start going through infertility, first of all, the chase after a baby starts to occupy their head, right?
Right.
And so their attention is elsewhere, and they become very focused and emotionally engaged with having a baby. Conception sex is like scratch and itch sex, only the itch is for a baby.
Okay. Scratching it. It's sex. Okay. Yes. I love
Right.
it. Yes.
And I think, and then the other thing is that all of the medical procedures really cause people to objectify the most intimate and the most delicate part of their being. They're having to objectify sexuality. They're feeling objectified as they medicalize this very tender, very intimate part of their lives. And that wears on the soul. It requires that people compartmentalize, and the compartmentalizing, of course, is the taking of the heart out of that lineup that I showed you before. And that creates problems for men and for women. Let's see, I've got my little statistics here. When a couple's undergoing fertility challenges and treatment, about 22% of men experience mild to moderate erectile difficulties, and as many as 34% report decreased desire. 72% report lubrication problems. 81% report decreased sensation and pleasure. 23% report difficulties achieving orgasm. That's a lot. That's a lot of problems. And I believe it's coming out of that medicalizing and the way it occupies your head. So you're taking the heart out of the lineup, and really you're kind of taking the head out of the lineup oftentimes too. One of the first recommendations that I'll give to couples going through infertility is that they have conception sex somewhere else. right?
Can you,
Like the guest room. And they keep the sex that they have because they like each other and it's fun in the bedroom.
okay. That makes a lot of sense there. And so the bedroom does not become a stressful point
Yeah.
in trying to produce a baby. Yes.
Right. And so that just like you don't want to have a television in the bedroom, for the sleep hygiene people will tell you not to put television in the bedroom because you don't want to create the associations to that active mental state with the bed. The bed should be for two things only, and neither of them is watching television or reading.
Right, exactly. So much, Dr. Sarah. We're going to take a short break, and then when we come back, we will talk more. She will provide us with more tips about how to help any of people out there who are struggling with infertility. Thank you.
Are you wanting to feel empowered, loved, secured, respected, and inspired in these uncertain times? If so, Dr. April, a licensed mental health counselor and a relationship and sex therapist who specializes in intimacy, can help you. Whether you are in need of insight and skills to work through a struggling relationship through couples counseling, or to understand your anxiety or depression in individual counseling, or to figure out your life goals in coaching, Dr. April's compassion and expertise can assist you in these areas. Also, she provides services for emotional support, animal documentation, supervision, and workshops. In addition, Dr. April has a group practice called Cape Coral Therapist. Cape Coral Therapist has an awesome team of male and female mental health therapists, all specialized in various areas including mental health, Christian counseling, trauma, addiction, immigration, and sports counseling, and are ready to serve you. The Cape Coral Therapist team, which is rated 5-star on Google Reviews, is known as the Dream Team because of their energy and passion for therapy and determination to provide you with effective and solution-focused counseling for you and your family in a safe and confidential environment. For more information on how you can schedule an appointment in person or virtually with Dr. April or any of the therapists at Cape Coral Therapist, please call 239-565-6921. And you are welcome to visit Dr. April's website, www.draprilbrown.com and www.capecoraltherapist.com. You can follow Dr. April on LinkedIn at Dr. April Brown. You can follow Cape Coral Therapist on Facebook at Cape Coral Therapy. Just remember, Dr. April and her team of therapists and resources can help you strengthen your intimate connections with yourself, your loved ones, your community, and your higher power.
Welcome back to the Bringing to Intimacy show. And today we're talking about infertility and how that affects intimacy in a relationship. And I have a special guest here, Dr. Sara Rosenquist. And so, Dr. Sarah, you've been talking about some of the different fertility issues that many couples are facing when they have infertility issues. So I'm curious, how does that impact a couple sexually when they're trying to have a baby and there are all these issues are coming up, such as performance anxiety, or how does that impact a couple?
Well, one way that it impacts them is that it kind of occupies their mind and their conversation. And oftentimes they get out of sync with one another. So one partner will be more obsessed, if you will, and wrapped around the tree of really trying to make this happen. And the other partner will be wanting a break, and they'll be kind of out of sync with each other that way. And so one of the things that I have people do is protect their conversation and set aside time, no more than once a week where they can talk about their fertility journey and the next steps and so forth. So that it's not just taking up your whole life. And if there's one partner that is coping by distracting themselves or trying to connect emotionally in another kind of way that sort of sidesteps the fertility challenge, that person's not going to feel blindsided and constantly feel sort of halfway on guard because, it's going to come up again, and then we're going to have all this tension, and there's not really anything we can do about it. It's really kind of a form of enlisting somebody else in rumination. And what's the difference between useless rumination and useful problem solving? It leads to action. Useful problem solving leads to action. And these ruminations don't.
Right.
The plan is in place, the doctor has it, and you can't do anything in your kitchen on a Sunday afternoon.
Right. I love the idea of you saying not spending more than 1 hour a week. And so as I'm thinking, and there's some couples who are out there listening and they're having issues, they're having sex, but they're not having a baby. What's like the first step? How do you know when it's just psychological, physical, mental?
Well, rarely is it just one thing.
Right.
Okay. The operational definition of infertility is 1 year of unprotected intercourse. So most fertility specialists that I know of anyway will not begin, unless you're of advanced age or you have known problems, will not really consider evaluating a couple for infertility until and unless they've been trying for a year. Now, there's exceptions to that, obviously, and different doctors are different ways, but that's my understanding. And in that year, you don't want to be so focused on conception that you're losing track of your emotional connection with your partner and you're not having fun and being playful. Once you begin to see a fertility specialist, they've got a very long list of things that they can do to assess and to intervene. And in all of medicine, they try to start with the least invasive procedures first before they'll graduate to, but they've got a wide panoply, a long menu of things that they can help people with. It's just that each step of the way, you're likely to encounter frustrations and disappointments, and then those start adding up emotionally. And you've got to keep your heart light, and you've got to keep your heart open, and you've got to keep your heart connected to each other and to your higher power, as you say.
Right. And so how do you do that with all the frustrations and sometimes all the decisions of, do I try this? Do I do this? Do I,
Well, I like it when people will compartmentalize the medical process, right? That's why I ask people to only set aside structured time that they'll talk about it, talk about their feelings, talk about the problem solving, do next steps. And then in between those conversations, really attend to each other and to being playful and having fun and delighting in life. I like it when they have sex in a different place. So some people will fix up the guest room, and they'll have conception sex in the guest room and fun sex in the bedroom. Things like that. And then sometimes people end up needing couples counseling in order to be able to really productively talk about how their journey emotionally is different, because two people are not going to experience this journey the same way.
Right.
Any, right? So any married couple, no matter how good the marriage, they're going to have differences in how they cope and what it means to them and how it weighs on them.
Mm-hmm. Can you address the concern that maybe for some men that maybe they're having performance anxiety because, how can I put it? It's so much pressure. And so,
Right. Well, it's
yes,
pressure.
yes,
Yeah, it's pressure because the woman will say, okay, my temperature spiked. We got to do it
right,
now. And nobody wants to feel like a poodle jumping through a hoop in the bedroom.
right,
Right. And so you've got to handle that with having a window. Right. Even if you know the moment of ovulation, you're fertile on a window before and after.
right, exactly.
And you might want to use that information to set the stage, but you don't want to use it to hold up a hoop that you got to jump through.
Okay.
Because if you do, then you're going to be objectifying your own body, objectifying your partner's body. You're not going to have your heart really in it. It won't be
Right,
lovemaking.
right.
It'll be some kind of scratch and itch sex. That's where you get performance anxiety in men and women. It just looks different.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. And sometimes, and with women, sometimes they get so into like, oh my gosh, I really need this to happen, that they're not present.
Exactly. They're not present.
Yes.
Right. And your partner can always tell when you're not present, and it's going to feel ill to them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so I love the diagram you put up earlier about having the head, the heart, and the junk connected.
Yeah. Your head's in your body, your heart's open to your partner, and your junk's working, man.
Yes, definitely.
That's just normal. Nothing spectacular.
But for couples, and I know you may say it's nothing spectacular, but for some individuals who may be listening,
Uh-huh.
what if they're struggling and not and having their head in the game?
Then I'm going to work to try to fake out the head. I want to get them in. I want to get their head in their body, and that might involve. It might involve meditation. It might involve learning to mindfulness meditation, keeping your
Mm-hmm.
head in your body. There's an exercise that I love to do with couples, and I call it skin to skin prime time. And it's some of my patients rename it the naked hug. And that is where they spend 15 minutes a day in a full frontal embrace, holding each other. But the catch is that no matter what comes up, they're not going to have sex at that time. And they're going to throw their clothes on and go back in the kitchen and cook dinner.
But
Or
that gives them that touch. Yeah.
It gives them the touch. It gives the unconscious mind that sense of safety of being held, and there's no demand because you have an agreement. You're not going to have sex no matter how aroused you get.
Right.
So you get the experience of being connected emotionally, being naked and not ashamed, being a little bit aroused and a little bit relaxed, but there's no demand. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? It unvelcros that whole thing. And if
right, that eases off the pressure. That eases off the pressure.
Eases off the pressure, and it works beautifully.
Yes. So we just now was talking about the head. Have you also seen couples who maybe have gone through this infertility for a year, 2 years, and some time, and their heart is not in it, but they want a baby? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen that?
I do. I tell you, the hardest is where they've had several pregnancies and they've lost them.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Because
yes.
Then the heart is wanting to protect itself.
Right.
and the head is forging ahead, and as an act of the will, I'm sort of forcing the will on the heart. And that is so very hard, so very hard. That's a more complicated treatment. I don't have any simple and easy recommendations for that. Skin to skin prime time is going to be one of them, because I want to restore that sense of sanctuary, of safety, of the return to Eden in the bedroom. It should be a safe place, safe from demands. And if we've compartmentalized out the conception sex, that's easier to do.
Okay. Yeah. And that helps with the heart.
Yeah, it helps open up the heart, and it helps them, and they're going to have to, they may need help with a couples therapist in grieving together the losses and in making a decision about when to stop. Oftentimes couples are not on the same page with that. So one will decide that I can't take this anymore. I can't take another loss. And the other will go, just one more time, just one more time. But it's very hard to risk your heart once it's been shattered so many times.
Yeah, yes. And I've seen that, and that it's been so devastating. So, but we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll talk more, because we do have some questions that people have signed in. Yes. But in this break here, Dr. Sara, I would love for you to share with our audience what you do, how they can reach you, and other things that you provide couples out there and individuals in your clinical practice.
Okay, you want me to do that now or after?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, right now. You're the break.
Okay. Well, I'm at drsara.com. That's DRSARA.com. And I'm in North Carolina currently. I'm licensed in North Carolina, in Virginia, and in Washington, D.C. And I am a member of it's called PsyPact. Let me pull it up here. Hold on just a second. So beginning in January, I can also see people in Arizona, Colorado, Delaware, Georgia, Illinois, Missouri, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Texas, Utah. In January, not until then. And until then, I'm licensed in DC, North Carolina, and Virginia.
Okay, awesome. And I know this session right now, we're talking about infertility, but Dr. Sara also works with a wide range of sexual issues. Yeah, what are the other issues that you work with?
Well, sexual dysfunctions. And like I said, I got into this through the postpartum depression. I'm board certified as a clinical health psychologist. So I see people who have sexual issues around cancer, around diabetes, around normal aging, around a variety of health problems. I see people for health problems. I see people for garden variety, depression and anxiety, and problems in living.
Okay.
As well.
Okay, yes. Well, thank you so much for letting us know what you do and what you provide. So one of our first questions we have, it's from a young lady in Arizona. And she says, my husband and I are having fertility issues. And I get mad when people ask me, when is a baby coming? My friends are having babies. And when I see them on social media, I get upset sometimes. Why is that?
Well, because your heart hurts. You're aching for a baby and you can't get it. And you haven't been able to get it and you can't have it right yet. It's not under your control. It's one of the most common problems that I see. It becomes hard to go to those baby showers. It becomes hard to field those kinds of questions. And my advice to you would be to prepare your script so that when people ask, you've got 5 or 6 different drop-down menu items you can pick from, and they're well rehearsed, and you can just say, well, the Stork must be on strike this year at our house, or whatever. darned if I know. Or that's a private journey, and it's a painful one right now. I don't care to share, depending on what your comfort level is in terms of how much you want to share with people. But you know the questions are coming, so you may as well prepare a scripted answer.
Mm-hmm. I like how you put depending on who's asking, because you're right. You can let people know that it's a private journey. I don't have to discuss my business with you. Or the other thing you said about the stork, you can make a joke out of it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think
how much humor you're going to use and how pointed you're going to be is going to depend on how intrusive they are, or whatever. I've known people that had to resort to what I call clicker training. You know, they had a parent that was particularly intrusive, and they really were tired of explaining it, because every time this friend, parent, relative, whatever, starts to give them their medical advice, even though they don't have any medical credentials, right? You may have to just change the subject. You may have to drop the call and call them back later. You may have to figure out how to do something behavioral that doesn't involve words in order to let that person know that you can't talk about this. You won't talk about this with them.
Okay.
It just depends on the context and the person and the relationship that you have, right?
Right. Okay, good. Another question we have is a young lady out in California, and her question is, I feel crazy because I'm taking a lot of medication and hormones, and I'm crying sometimes, and all these things are happening. But it doesn't seem like my husband understands. Sometimes I don't even understand myself. What can I do when I just feel just like a crazy person on all this stuff?
Well, whenever your body is going through a lot of different changes, whenever whether it's hormones or it's a treatment of some sort, or there's pain, there's bloating, there's all kinds of side effects with any medications that you're on, you're not going to have the bandwidth that you usually have. Bandwidth is what we use for emotion regulation, right? Whether we deal with stress. And now who has any bandwidth? Everybody's got like 3 millimeters of bandwidth because of the COVID.
Right.
And we just had a horrific election season, and people are stirred up. So you don't have any bandwidth. Your husband's not going to understand. He doesn't live in a woman's body. Mm-hmm. He lives in his own body.
Right. Okay.
And so there are things that he's not going to be able to understand, and you're just going to have to ask him to respect your process, and you're going to have find ways to cope with that, and ways to protect your bandwidth, given that it's really skinny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would you suggest in that situation, or do you know of any like online groups or books for?
Some people have benefited from a group called Resolve.
Okay, Resolve.
Which Resolve, RESOLVE, which is a nationwide fertility support network that educates people. It's a not-for-profit, and whatever their offerings are, they're free.
Okay, awesome. Another question, it's coming from a woman here in Florida. She says, my husband was so excited in the beginning about infertility, about us going through this infertility process, but now he's not.
Yeah. Well, I need to know how long it's been, but I'm thinking that there's been lots of disappointments.
Yes.
You know, when people first start down the journey, they first go to the doctor, they just know that the solution is going to be easy and quick, and they'll be pregnant next month. Mm-hmm. And that kind of optimism lasts for varying lengths of time. Some people, it lasts a long time, and some people start to feel pessimistic and to protect their heart after just a few disappointments.
Right.
But one of the frustrations is that it's clearly not under your control. And we're used to thinking that this, of course, it's under my control. All I have to do is have sex and I'm going to get pregnant. This is why we've been avoiding this for so long. Stop running and it'll catch me. And it turns out to be harder than that for a lot of people.
Okay.
And then there's the whole, it feels so unfair, but who promised fairness? Life is not fair.
Right, which is very hard sometimes, yes. And I think, yes, and our next question has a little bit to do with that. And it's from a young woman in South Carolina. And she says they've been married for 5 years and they have not had a baby. And when she talks with her family and friends, they all say to just pray.
Right.
And that's what her husband is saying. But she's wanting to look at other options, but she doesn't know because she doesn't feel like she has the support.
And you might not have the support. I don't, you have your own family context and your own subculture,
right?
That it finds itself in. But given that it's been 5 years, it's probably not a bad idea, probably be a good idea to at least go visit a fertility specialist and get some initial testing. Like I said, it's a wide range of things that they do. And they have to go through a lot of tests before they'll give you a treatment plan and say, oh, this is, you can't make assumptions about what might be the block.
Right.
But neither can you expect God to intervene divinely without some effort on your part to avail yourself of medical wisdom.
Right, right. Because it's just like if you had anything else going wrong with you, you would go to the doctor and get it checked out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
That would be a sensible thing to do anyway.
Yes. Dr. Sara, this next question is heartbreaking. The question is, I'm struggling in having a baby. Is something wrong with me? Because everybody else can have it really quick and fast. But is something wrong with me as a woman since I'm struggling in having a baby?
I don't exactly know what you mean. Is there a medical problem? There might be. I don't know.
Right.
Are you defective as a woman? I'd say that's stinking thinking, and you don't want to let your mind go there.
Exactly.
Because if you do, you'll churn up a good old head of depression, if not anxiety, and that's not going to do you any good. You may have a medical problem that is often solvable, sometimes not, but defective, it's not a moral failing.
Right, exactly.
And we don't know that you're the problem. Right? 1/3 of the time, the issue is a male factor infertility. 1/3 of the time, it's a female factor infertility. And 1/3 of the time, it's a combination, or it remains a mystery never to be known.
Wow. Okay. I'm so glad she mentioned that, because I don't know if it's the females, but many females end up blaming themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So 1/3 is maybe issues with the female body of some sort, and 1/3 maybe issues with the man's body. And then you said 1/3, maybe the couple together, or some things that they just sometimes never know.
Or sometimes never know. Remains a mystery. Medical science, we think that, it's so advanced compared to our grandparents and great grandparents that surely to goodness there must be an answer sometimes there isn't. And I find in my practice, not just with reproductive health, but with other health issues, that it's when things are a mystery, and oftentimes they are, that people are in the greatest amount of torment for the longest time, because we like answers, we like certainty, and not knowing ambiguity is hardwired in the brain to create anxiety. And if what we do out of that is fill in the blanks, oftentimes we'll fill in the blanks with self-blame.
Right, which is ridiculous.
Well, but it's really compelling.
Yeah, it is.
And for a lot of people, it's a really well-established habit and really hard to change and hard to shake. And oftentimes we fill in the blanks with a lot of subjective certainty. We feel this must be absolutely certain. I know what it is. My spidey senses are telling me, but if it's an unknown, it really is not known. That's the problem.
Yeah, and I tell my clients all the time, they have to learn how to love themselves, because they're going to be with themselves for the rest of their lives. And they, and you can't, and you shouldn't really talk trash about yourself, So yeah, it's got to be this self-love. Yes, definitely.
Right.
Yeah. So we have time for one last question, and it says, how can I make the ovulation time period more sexy and desirable? Because it seems so routine every month that we're trying.
Oh, well, right. Because around ovulation, that's when you're having your conception sex.
Right.
Well, one of the things you could do is you could fix up that guest room as, your little boudoir. You could have candles. You could make it fun and playful. You could save that for your time to experiment, or have a game going with your partner. I don't know. People spice it up different ways. Each person is different, but you may have to figure out how to make it more playful between the two of you, so that you're sort of faking yourselves out a little bit and you're not so focused on the conception that it takes all the fun out of it.
Right. I like how you said the last time about different location or different bedroom, and even could be different locations sometime, you can go on a trip. Yeah. And I know of people who have sometimes even did some role playing, what I'm saying? Yeah, to spice it up.
Absolutely.
So it's not the same old thing over and over again, which can be kind of, hard on a couple.
Right.
Yeah,
especially
definitely.
when and you've got to figure out how to get your mind in your body and be really present to all five senses and to the emotional connection with your husband. You have to be able to tolerate the not knowing. Maybe we're making a baby this time, and maybe not.
Yes. And I don't think one of the things we kind of talked just a little bit about, but couples counseling, as you do, it deals with the head and the heart, because as you put, there's 3 parts to it.
Right.
So yes, and so the 3 parts: head, heart, and junk. And if you're doing the physical part, but it's still not working, when should a couple think about going into couples counseling to work on the head and the heart?
I think when you feel like you're drifting apart, and this is driving a wedge between the two of you, and if you are not able to protect your conversation and limit your conversation, your problem solving, your mourning about this process to just once a week. It doesn't have to be for a full hour. For some people, 15 minutes is enough. I'm not going to set a time on it, but just to your set aside time. If you're not able to get your mind off of it and really be present to one another, and remember that the reason you make love is because you like each other, you love each other, and it's fun.
Awesome. Yes. Good. Yeah. So, Dr. Sara, tell us again how they can reach you.
drsara.com, DRSARA.com, drsara.com. I've got an 800 number. It goes to an answering service somewhere in Arizona, as far as I know.
Yes, yes. And that number is.
But they will quickly get me an email. And as long as you live in one of the states where I'm licensed, which is North Carolina, Washington, D.C., or Virginia, I can attend you through the virtual medium, and those other 14 states, that's coming in January.
Okay, awesome. And you have the 800 number, I believe, correct, is 866-337-4911.
Is it 4911?
Yeah, I think that's what I
don't call myself, so.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes, I think that's the number.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, yes.
866-337-4911. That's how I remember it. Yeah, 4911. But drsara.com, email is easiest.
Okay,
actually.
and they can find you on Facebook also?
Yep, Dr. Sara Rosenquist on Facebook. DRSARA ROSENQUIST.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the show. We really do appreciate it. You're always welcome back. And all of those people who are out there listening, check out any of my counseling services at www.draprilbrown.com. If you enjoyed this show and you would like to see more of Bringing Intimacy Back show, check out our website at www.bringingintimacyback, or follow us on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, or Spotify. Thank you very much.
All right, great. Thanks for having me.
Yes.